I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar, which is how to integrate email, voice, and chat into the contact center. I think this is going to prove a very popular topic. We've got quite a large number of people dialed in already. It's been certainly very easy to add channels onto the contact center, but integrating them in any shape or form has proven to be elusive for most people. So I'd just like to introduce to you our two panelists. Delighted to welcome back a regular on our webinars over the years, Paul Weald, a contact center innovator currently working on a project with Deloitte. And Paul, you're going to be talking through personalizing of the email, voice, and chat.
Yes, so very much coming at it from the angle of how differentiated is the service that is provided across these different channels, how much is that adapted to who the actual customer is.
And if you were on yesterday's webinar, we talked about corporate amnesia, which companies have when you seem to move across channels. They completely forget who you are. So I think the whole personalizing approach will be very good for that. We're joined by Megan Jones on the news desk, who's monitoring all of the conversations going on in the chat room. We'll be dealing with the top tips and questions. And delighted to introduce for the first time onto our webinar program James Glassball from Volt Delta. And James, you're going to be talking about the integration elements of the multi-channel.
Yeah, absolutely. So really just pulling together some best practice tips and advice that we've seen our customers implement in terms of how they bring together particularly these three channels that we've got here, email, voice, and chat, as well as some of the other ones that are prevalent that we've already mentioned, such as social media and so on.
And so presumably Volt Delta supports all these different
we do, yeah. So, and you know, it's as customers now operate in the digital environment, it's absolutely mandatory really to have a presence in all of these.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand you're sort of quite a long-serving member of staff with.
I am.
How long is that?
Yeah, probably about 19 years now. So
wow, that's some longevity. So I guess the company must be doing something right.
It's been a good company to work for.
Very good.
Man and boy.
Absolutely.
So that's the agenda. Just a reminder to log into the chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat. There is a bottle of champagne or box of chocolates for the best tip. Paul, if I could ask you immediately after the webinar to pick the tip, and we'll be tweeting that later on today. There will be a recording coming out and potentially a white paper from Volt Delta, which could be sent out to you. So just a reminder on the chat room, no commercial messages allowed through the chat room. Please keep it nice and polite as you always do. Once you're logged into the chat room, and here's the address at the top, you can download the webinar slides. So just follow this link here, and you can get copies of both Paul's and James's presentations. And if you want a transcript of the chat log, you can do it from this little filing tray icon down the bottom. I'd like to start off by asking you all a poll. And that poll is, which channels do you offer in your contact center? So do you offer phone, email, web chat, social media, or do you offer video chat? So it'd be interesting to see the numbers that come through here. Paul, presumably phone is going to be the most common, and what do you think is going to be the order following after that?
Well, bearing in mind the topic that people are listening to today, I would expect to see a pretty strong showing from probably 4 out of 5 of those.
Well, let's have a look at the results, and I'll just close the survey. Share the results up here. Sample size of 116. So 100% of people, not surprising, have phone. 94% email. 48% web chat, and that's been really moving up from, that's well more than doubled on similar surveys we did about this time last year. 34% social media, which seems quite low, and now 6% video chat. So certainly if anyone's using video, it would be useful if you could drop into the chat room what you're using video for. Would be quite interesting to see. So some quite interesting results there. And what I'd like to do now is just drill down into the whole way of integrating them. And I'd just like to ask a question of you in the chat room. In 1 or 2 words, what is your biggest challenge with integrating email, voice, and chat into the contact center? Is it budget? Is it getting management buy-in? Is it technology constraints? Is it lack of skills within the organization? Or is it just a lack of knowledge? So whatever your answers are, if you'd like to type that into the chat room now. And we've got the first few results coming through. Art says it's resources and a skill set that's lacking. Neil says IT constraints. Craig says it's technology against budget. Maitesh says it's IT constraints and resources. Veronica saying it's having one system that could include all those channels. I guess you're going to be talking about in a while. Lack of experience, says Chris. Technology talking to each other, says David. Understanding the concept, says Simon. Douglas says it's technology and IT constraints. James is technology ensuring all systems feed into one CRM systems. Resources, says Gary, and technology, systems, and skills. So if I summarize that down, there's an educational piece, understanding some of the concepts. Technology is one of the constraints there, and also just a sort of resource skill set element seem to be the most common. Paul, does that sort of ties in with your research on the subject?
Yeah, I think in terms of today's webinar, the education piece, hopefully we can help with over the next hour. And obviously James has a sort of technology suite in his sort of back pocket. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the skills issue is often overlooked because the nature of dealing with different channels and actually dealing with not just the fact that the channels have got different capabilities and different uses by customers, but how actually you run that through potentially a sort of single center, whether you have one team, multiple teams, etc. Those are the issues that people kind of seem to want to know the answer to, and that's the sort of first step.
And James, when we were talking earlier, you sort of highlighted that really almost the technology is not the holding factor anymore.
No, I'd agree with Paul. I mean, what we're seeing is things migrate to the cloud. I mean, a lot of the integration work has been done for customers already between disparate systems and different functional elements. So what we see when we go to customers is very much, the best ones have a vision of where they want to go with their customer strategy and experience, and we help them, deliver that. The ones where they don't, then we have to workshop and work through what's best for them, taking into account their skills and their processes and people.
Well, I think that's an appropriate time in the proceedings to pass the baton across to Paul Weald, and who's going to be taking us through personalising of email, voice, and chat in the contact centre. So if I've just passed the baton across to Paul. And Paul, if you'd like to take us through your presentation.
Okay, so Deloitte have an active team looking in terms of advising around customer contact centres, and yes, have a full awareness of the sort of technology suite behind it. But in terms of kind of kicking today off, just really a couple of reference points. I think a number of us are aware of Contact Babel and the annual survey that they produce, which I hold a certain amount of respect for, because it's actually UK contact centre managers who complete this. So I think it gives an accurate perspective, and you can look back over years to see trends.
Well, I think the consistency of the questions that are asked gives a really very steady trend you see on what's happening there. It's no great spikes appearing.
Absolutely. So Steve Morel and his team do a very good job. The messages that come out are predominantly that in terms of inbound, responding to inbound contact, that telephony is still the primary channel in much the same way as we saw through our poll. And in terms of how the interactions are dealt with, then the second highest channel is email, And in terms of looking at different sectors, then services and manufacturing, maybe because they have B2B type interactions, that is a common method of communications. Web chat, which I know, Jonty, we've covered in previous webinars, is currently at about 3%, most popular with outsourcers and retail, but growing quite significantly in terms of people have an aspiration and an expectation in the sort of future, and then a whole host of other channels making up the mix. But from some desktop research that Deloitte has done, we certainly see that the major growth areas in the future are going to come from these emerging, these more digitally orientated channels. So yeah, social media. In fact, I think that number's almost spot on with the poll. So that's encouraging. But then mobile. So we're all now getting much more used to using smartphones, not only for keeping in touch with friends and family by phone, but actually using it as a device a lot more for internet and also retrieving email. And then certainly using the digital channels as a collaborative mechanism. So certainly web chat, the airline that I'm working with at the moment, have extremely high customer satisfaction in terms of supporting them, whether they're making a booking online or whether they're trying to service that particular booking. So web chat has an absolutely key role to play.
And certainly with younger generations, certainly the millennial generation seem to take digital first as almost the approach. And certainly my daughter is 19, doesn't like using the telephone unless she can, it's almost the channel of last resort, really.
Yeah, and certainly web chat is there to assist customers whilst they're in the digital channel to actually complete that transaction without having to actually, they almost see it, as you say, as a failure if they have to call up on the back of something that they've actually tried to do online. So yeah, so collaboration, video, these are all channels which businesses are considering. But I think the question is, how do they actually integrate that? And I know we'll sort of touch upon this in sort of more detail. But an interesting stat is, less than a third actually have a kind of common reporting engine. So in other words, the remaining 2/3 actually have to pull off one set of reports from the telephony system, another from the email system, and actually trying to pull that together to get an overall view of not only channel usage, but also trying to tie that together from a customer perspective becomes tricky.
And certainly if you're in the audience, if you're experiencing those sorts of problems, if you could jot down how difficult it is to get your reporting together, just let us know in the chat room would be great.
Okay, I think I'm going to hand back to you, Jonty, in terms of a poll. But so the question is, as we start to think about integration, then how do we do that in a way that leads to a more personalised experience? So how do we make it memorable for that particular customer? How do we provide a differentiated service if you're a gold card customer or a VIP, so someone who has a very high lifetime value to the organisation? How do you make it different?
So we're going to ask a question about a personalised experience. Paul, what would you put as the definition of a personalised experience before I put the question up?
So I think it's very much around how, as a customer, are you made to feel different? Do you think you're just being corralled into the contact centre in the same way as everybody else? Or is it that you feel that the organisation is actually knowing you, understanding you, and actually giving you something that makes you feel different or sort of special?
So the question is, how many times this year have you contacted an organisation by email, voice or chat and had a personalised experience? Is it never? Is it 1 or 2 times, 3 or 4 times, 5 to 9 times, or 10+ times? So I'd just like to vote on that. How many times have you contacted an organisation and had a personalised experience? James, do you think it's going to be there's going to be lots of 10+s here?
I'm guessing probably not this time, but we'll see. You never know. We might be surprised.
Okay, well let's put the results up on the screen. 21% have never had a personalised experience. 51% 1 to 2 times. 18% 3 to 4 times. 5% 5 to 9, and 5% 10 plus. So I think there probably is an advantage we could have if we could offer a personalised experience in our service. So Paul, I don't know whether that surprises you or not.
No, I think 10% of the audience are clearly in a sort of a VIP bracket, Jonty. I think we can make that a sort of assumption.
Wonderful. So Paul, if you'd like to show us how we can make a personalised experience, would be great.
Okay, so I think a couple of examples to try to bring this to life. The first one very much relates to the online experience, and that is really to set a context around whether for that particular interaction it's better for the customer if they phone you, whether they email you, or whether they get in contact via sort of web chat. An example that I like to use here is one of those organisations that is often quoted as being an exponent of, sort of leading practice, and that is Amazon. And hopefully everyone in the audience is familiar with how they provide service. What's interesting about how they do contact us is that they, first of all, get an understanding about what the nature of the inquiry is. So just on a screen grab here, so the first thing is understand what the product or service is actually about, and in this example we said it was about either the Fire or Kindle products. And then the next thing they do is a series of drop-down boxes which actually narrows down in the context of those particular products what the particular issue relates to. And the third thing they do is then potentially give you some answers. So they offer up some support pages that are in the context of what the inquiry is about. And then when they offer an opportunity to interact, as we can see at the bottom of the screen, there are 3 different methods. And in the nature of the operational situation at this point in time, and the nature of the inquiry, in this example, then phone is actually provided. And what's interesting is that email has a much slower turnaround in terms of a customer actually getting a response and an ability to interact. And chat is not necessarily something that every contact centre offers 24/7. So in this example, the customer was being driven towards using the phone.
And also for technical support, there gets to a level where if it's going to be reasonably complex to set up a technical product, actually, I've started off on web chats tech support, and after about 45 minutes into it, of this sort of ping pong, you ask a question, wait, 2 minutes for an answer, then you try that and something back. You think, oh cracky, I wish I'd actually start with a phone call. It would be over by now. So. Different channels have got different dynamics in terms of speed as well.
Absolutely. So so I think we can learn from Amazon. The other piece that is relevant to this discussion is actually what we know about our customer. So the point at which the customer is interacting with you, then do you actually know something about why it is they're actually getting into contact? So the mobile phone companies are very good about this. If you get in contact with them and it's coming up to the end of the contract, they may well, without you knowing it, give you VIP routine treatment. Why? Because they want to have a conversation about renewing that particular contract. So where the customer is in terms of their the major events that impact the relationship that the business has with them is often a trigger. It may or may not be CRM based. I did some work last year with a council. They were looking at refreshing some technology, and as a byproduct, they actually ended up going cloud. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story was they already had a CRM system. They'd started out 5 years earlier in believing that what they had to do was to replace all of the back-end systems and bake that into the front of bake all the processes into the CRM system. But that was actually quite expensive. What they realised when we started to talk about different channels, which are now being integrated into the environment, was what they really wanted was not necessarily a CRM system, but actually a contact logging system. So they wanted to know who the customer was in terms of different handles, email addresses, mobile phone numbers, even sort of Facebook accounts if they were interacting via that particular social media, such that they could then begin to understand how customers, touching them across different channels in different methods, that they could glue those particular contacts together and actually therefore respond in a way that was most relevant. And again, within a council you have a lot of different sectors and sort of demographics, and they really were keen to understand how to actually treat people differently. And so my kind of concluding point is that to do that from an operational perspective, you do need to be able to pull all of that was sort of brought in together. And certainly in terms of anybody embarking on a multi-channel contact centre, reporting is often the bit that you leave to the end. I guess my message is bring it to the front, do it sort of first.
Wonderful. And I guess from a personalisation perspective, Paul, that with identifying people like callers, and on the website you already have security that you may put people through, so you can collect data about them. You can give a personalised telephone number for someone to call, or a click to call. You can get certain information back. But I'm guessing also from mobile phones becoming much more prevalent in terms of people calling into call centres, and often now included within minutes. You almost, one of the old problems was you need to have a household, perhaps 4 people on the same phone number. But now everyone has the mobile phone glued to the end of their hand. So you've almost got that number is a pretty good security mechanism.
And I think particularly in terms of the digital devices, it can go even further than that. So retail bank that I worked with last year, if you were ringing into the contact centre, you had a rather tortuous IVR experience. However, if you were using their mobile banking app, you had a kind of help button. That help button essentially was seamless to then go straight into the contact centre. Guess what? Because you'd already signed into the mobile banking app, it knew not only who you were, but the nature of the context of the conversation. So you didn't need IVR. In actual fact, that was a way we saw a marked increase in the number of people coming and using telephony via their mobile banking app. In fact, it actually was almost counterintuitive that they thought telephony was actually going to go down, but because of the rise of mobile banking, actually that was a better way of actually getting into the contact centre.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Paul. We're going to jump across and have a look at some of the comments that are coming through on the chat room. We're going to jump across to Megan Jones, who's on back at the news desk monitoring the chat room. Megan, what hints and tips have you got for us?
Hi, Jonty. We've got a number of tips and questions coming through the chat room. The first tip is from Alex. He says, we personalise in the IVR and queue. Lookup can capture customer value. For example, before the interaction gets to the agent, thereafter they're trained to ask for a name. We've had another tip in from Matthew. He says, personalised experience has to be the medium to long-term goal if you're still integrating channels. Getting the integration correct, the resource to support the multi-channels and consistent multi-channel experience have to be priorities. James, do you agree with this? Do you think it needs to be a medium to long-term goal, or do you think a shorter timescale is achievable?
I guess I'd probably say it's better if you can do it in a shorter time frame. But obviously, perhaps Matthew's speaking to some of the difficulties around integrating systems in the back end to actually support that. But I'd certainly put that as your vision, and if not for all of your customer base, maybe you could segment, start small, see what works for your own customer experience.
Brilliant, thank you. We've had an opinion in from Fons that says telephone is still in use because it's real time. As such, I believe web chat, also real time, will soon take over email. Then we've had a question in from Jamie. Paul, I don't know if you want to answer this one, but it says, how do you believe sales will need to be adapted for email and live chat rather than face-to-face or phone conversations? Do you think there's a need there for a different strategy?
Yeah, no, that is a very good question, and particularly in the nature of can it replace face-to-face channels. I'm sure a lot of finance directors would be thrilled if they didn't have to have quite as many travelling sales reps going around the country, if they could do more with their customers online. And certainly I've seen, particularly in financial services, the rise of being able to use kind of collaborative digital sessions as a kind of fact find, as a means of actually interacting with customers and having an audit trail sort of around that. So I think the kind of collaboration question is where any change, move away from kind of face-to-face comes from. In terms of phone conversations, then yeah, I would agree with Jamie that that live chat is something that certainly has a key role to play in any digital sort of sales or transactions.
And I guess doing simple things on this, like one-to-one live chat rather than trying to do one-to-3 in a sales. I'm always a great believer in a one-to-one live chat, because you just build faster communication. May not be as cost effective, but I think that probably has got a role to play, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think certainly the face-to-face or the online collaboration in lieu of face-to-face is something that has to be one-to-one, because in actual fact you are needing to create an audit trail. You need to record the screens, the steps that the customer's been through, and acknowledgement that they've seen, again, in a regulated environment, acknowledgement that they've actually seen documents and that they've agreed to kind of terms and conditions, etc. So certainly that type of process, definitely because of the auditability, definitely needs to be sort of one-to-one. But general live chat, back to my airline, we have agents that deal with 3 conversations in parallel, and an expectation that they can help the customer within sort of 5 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, no, very good.
Brilliant. And we've got a final tip now from Leslie that says, I promote offering the service that best suits the customer inquiry. Due to the technical nature of our customer queries, web chat may provide the customer with the correct level of support or deliver a great customer experience. In these instances, we'd offer an outbound call or a call back to the customer. And I think that's all we've got time for now, John T. So back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Some very interesting points that have been raised there on the chat room. And so I think now's the point to look at how we can pull together some of the technology. And delighted to introduce you James Glasspool from Bolt Delta, who can take us through some of the technical challenges that you might encounter and how we can overcome them. So we'll just pass the baton across to James and put James's slides up on the screen. So we just need to go full screen.
Yeah, there we go.
There we are.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I guess when we look at this topic of integrating email, voice and chat, there's some key questions that spring to my mind, and it's really things like, does the customer experience an acceptable wait time across all of these different channels? Would they receive the same answer across all 3 channels? Am I actually treating all the customers the same? Are they all experiencing the same level of service? And from the agent point of view, and the contact center point of view, how many systems does the agent actually have to access to support all 3 channels? And once at the agent position, do they actually really see all the channels, all the interactions for that particular customer easily and efficiently? And we've in one of the contributions, someone mentioned real time, non-real time, and the three channels we're looking at today, really, they're very different types of channel. I mean, voice is very much real time, of course. It's empathetic. It's a one-to-one approach. Expensive to deliver, perhaps. So we do tend to restrict the hours. Email is very much a slightly cold, interactive. It's certainly a non-real time. It also tends and lends itself to a batch approach to dealing with email inquiries. Whereas chat, as we've mentioned earlier, is much it's much closer to real-time conversation. Not always. It's more conversational. It does give you the ability to get some efficiency improvements in terms of in particular environments be able to handle more than one chat at a time, depending on exactly what it is you're doing. And when we talk to some of our customers, I mean, some of the trends we're seeing in terms of how people go about setting objectives for each of these three channels is very much around, there is a general trend to try and reduce the volume on voice. We appreciate, it's an expensive channel, and it's really something that people want to reserve for the higher value work, more complex work, and try and reduce the sort of mundane transactional type of inquiries and so on. Email is very much, it feels a little bit like yesterday's channel. I mean, many of our customers, really do want to, if they could, they'd like to turn it off, but certainly want to reduce it. It really doesn't lend itself to a very great customer experience. So they kind of want to promote some channel switch from email into one of the other channels. And live chat really, as per the figures Paul put up earlier, very much, it's really, we see it growing in our customer base. Our customers want to typically promote the use of web chat. It supports the digital agenda very much, and there's an efficiency argument. Depending on the service that you're offering, you can do more than one thing, more than one chat per agent at one time. Gives you the ability, as we just saw in one of the interactions there, to push links out to a customer, perhaps in a technical support environment, that type of thing, to help a customer, and really does fulfill that self-service digital agenda that perhaps all of our finance people out there are pushing and promoting as we try and make more efficient. So to that end, I was thinking it'd be useful just to see a little poll from everyone on the call today, just to see how easily your agent can actually see the contact history across all of the channels that you serve when a customer contacts you by any means.
Okay, so the question is, can your agents easily see all the contact history across all channels when a customer contacts you? So the answers are yes, the agent can easily see all the channels the customer has used. Mostly, the agent has a reasonable view of the customer channels the customer has used, or no, they cannot easily see the channels the customer has used so far. So Paul, I'm guessing that it's probably not going to be terribly integrated. Would that be your take?
Yeah, I'd certainly, unless we have some enlightened people on the call today, then I would expect it to be more orientated around no or mostly. But I would love to be sort of prove wrong.
Okay, well let's have a look at the results. Another research I've seen sort of tends to bear this out. Yes, 14% do have a fully integrated view. 31% have a sort of reasonable view of the channels. I wonder how much of that is from a reporting being able to join it up afterwards. And 55% can't see what's going on. James, that sort of ties in with your thoughts?
It very much does, yeah. So no great surprise there, as to and it's almost borne out from your own personal experience in everyday life when perhaps all of us contact our service providers or with an inquiry where guess what, they don't even know my name and I'm phoning from a mobile.
Yeah, indeed. So back to you. We'll pass the baton back to you there, James.
Okay, thanks for that. So just following on, really. I mean, I guess we're all quite familiar with the fact that our market and our customers are changing. We've already mentioned people are more social, more mobile. There's other trends happening out there, such as wearables coming along, devices, the Internet of Things, and so on. But certainly, the key point really is. The newer generation do expect a digital-first agenda. They expect to interact digitally, and we in providing solutions from the cloud or brands out there supporting our customers. We really have to be responsive to the changing the change in demographic there. Paul's already mentioned customer journeys, and I think this is a very useful thing that we see many of our more innovative customers taking, to put the customer at the center of their planning. So really coming at it from a customer point of view and looking, inside out, starting with how a customer might, discover your brand, your service, your product, and then trying to map onto those using customer personas, thinking through the different types of customer segment that you have. Those might best interact with you at a different stage of the journey, from the research stage through to the use and retention stages, and trying to work out how best to serve the customer through each of those channel mechanisms. And really simplifying a little bit further is just think that the easiest way really is to look at whichever channel it is, we want to steer it to the right place with the right agent with the right skills, or to the right automated service in that sense. Offer that automation intelligently. So think through can we get the customer to self-serve? Do they always need support? And figure that out in a fairly practical and sensible way. And then for the more innovative customers, is really just to think about, we've got a lot of data about our customer. Well, let's try and join it up. Let's try and use it to inform how we steer the call and how we offer that level of automation. And if we really want to, add some innovation there, and we had it as one of the contributory comments earlier, was can we look at something like, customer lifetime value prediction for the customer as they come in, real time, live, to figure out how to steer that call efficiently, and with the view of giving the best customer experience at the end of that call. So when we sort of look at some of the things our customers have been doing, it's a little bit of a stepping stone or building block approach, and it's really that there aren't really any shortcuts to kind of getting to that level of high level of personalization that we that we'd like to deliver to our customers. Certainly, I think starts with thinking through the customer journey at the front end, and working out the best way to serve that and putting some goals around that. I think the next stage is very much to join the channels together. So make sure that you can actually route all these channels from one place with one view. At that stage, you're then really getting some benefit, and you can then really start scheduling your resources, be they automated workflows or live agents, across those real-time and near real-time and indeed non-real-time channels, to basically mix and match and make sure that the non-real-time channels are treated to the appropriate service level, and they're not just sort of left in the email, we'll get back to you in 48 hours bucket. At that point, and we've already mentioned this, so I think it's very key to look at, can you integrate the actual interaction or call MIS, the call statistics that you're getting across all of these channels, with the actual data you're getting from your customer and how they've interacted with you, which services and products they've bought, where they are in that customer journey. And if you can join those two data sets, it gives you the ability obviously to personalize the experience to some degree, knowing who's calling you and who's contacting you on the different channel. But more importantly, it also gives you the ability to data mine, to really work out the way you need to go back and look at your customer journey to better support those journeys. We've mentioned already that on top of that is, once you're getting to that level, it's really about, can you make the customer service the agent can deliver much more seamless? Can you consolidate all the different systems that the agent needs to look at to deliver a single level of service quite efficiently? And I was talking to someone recently. They had 12 different systems the agent had to navigate between, and when they consolidated to a single desktop, they were able to shrink the average handling time by about just below 2 minutes. Now, we know average handling time is not a good indicator of success for customer experience, but it certainly then frees up the agent to do some thinking live in the call and respond in a much better way to solving the customer's issue at the time. And then really with that integrated desktop, if you can then move on and those back-end systems, and I've used the term CRM, and it's not always CRM that we're talking about here. I mean, Paul talks about systems at a council. It's really about, if you can bring those systems together into one system that the agent can use, and that the routing engine can also dip and use. At that point, you're in quite a powerful position, and you can really then start dipping that data in real time to actually inform how you route the call, the email, the web chat. And at that point, it gives you the ability to start segmenting your customer base at the very first level, or indeed even offering a level of personalized service. And this could be based on the customer journey context, based on the data in the CRM. It could be a customer lifetime value. There's lots and lots of things you can start now doing once you've got these building blocks in place. There's no shortcut to get there, but once you're there, it really does allow you to treat each customer differently and serve them in a manner appropriate to them. We've talked about VIP customers, but I appreciate for some of you that's not appropriate, but it could be that flagging a particularly vulnerable caller in certain services where you need to treat them differently. So that really gives you the ability to do that segmented and personalized routing. So that's very much what we do as Vault Delta. We very much into delivering this type of customer experience, joining up the level of integration for our customers, and we do this typically from the cloud. And we do it from the cloud for the reason that we've actually taken the effort to do that level of integration to leading CRM systems already. So it does give you the ability to shortcut a lot of those systems hurdles that we appreciate are big blockers sometimes to delivering joined up service. And so when we look at bringing these together in the cloud, we really do think that it does accelerate your time to market, rather than and the mantra we would always say is let us worry about the technology. We deliver the service from the cloud, and that very much lets our customers worry about the customer journey and the customer experience, and not the technology. So just as a little summary, I've got a poll for you all. We talked about customer experience and personalising the journey and so on, but I think it'd be interesting to know from the audience whether or not you think it would, going for a cloud-based offer, whether that makes it easier or harder to offer this kind of level of segmented and personalised routing that we've been discussing today. So I'll hand back to Jonty on that.
So the question is, would adopting a cloud contact centre approach make it easier or harder to offer segmented or personalised routing? Let's have a look at the results that are coming through here. And the results are 51% change, think it would be easier, 39% no difference, and 10% believe that it would actually be harder to integrate. So I think overwhelmingly people are seeing cloud as potentially the way forward, there. So I don't know, Paul, if that ties in with your expectations.
Yeah, I would imagine that we've got a quite a business-orientated audience, because I think that the business people kind of get it. Some of the barriers perhaps come from more the IT and technological side. Certainly, both from a mindshare perspective, that if you've always had technology that sits in the comms room in the corner of the building to run your contact centre, it's quite a brave move, therefore, to hand over control of that to a third-party service provider. But I think that trend is slowly sort of moving.
No, I mean, interesting, and I can see a little bit more work to do to persuade people, but I definitely see for the customers where, and this is not pie in the sky, this is something we are, delivering to real customers. And I think one of the things that they've found is once they put those building blocks and start integrating call data with the CRM data they have, if they can move to a common platform, CRM or systems or other, once you joined up, it really does give you control. And it's very, very powerful when you see it in operation. We've got some good customer examples using it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that, James. So if I could summarise the two approaches there, it would probably be something along the lines of start off by setting expectations for what your service level should be across all of the channels, and doing that in a personalised manner. There's then a journey mapping exercise, so you need to stock up on post-it notes and whiteboards for that exercise for most of them. And if you do that, send us in the photos of you doing the exercise. You then need to join together your data sets, which could either be done in CRM, which might be the the more logical place. But if you're actually getting into your CRM actually, CRM a few years ago was going to be the answer to all our prayers. It now becomes another legacy system. So it could be CRM or a contact logging system. So once you join your data sets together, then the technology elements to look at a single queue, integrating your desktop and integrating your reporting, and the cloud may or may not, but probably has some form of role to do that. Once you've got all of that together and start doing it, you then just have to integrate the scheduling and resource planning into the mix. So that's the sort of a thumbnail summary, if you like, of our two presentations on that. So I think that could tie in quite nicely. Well, we're now going to jump across and go across to Megan on the news desk and see what's been happening in the chat room. And I guess, Megan, you've got absolutely loads of tips and questions for us to run through.
Hi, John T. Yes, the chat room has been quite busy today. We've got a tip in now from Ramachandra that says personalization is linked to understanding customer interactions across all channels to derive actionable insight in providing more of a proactive service as opposed to the traditional reactive service. Put simply, know everything you can about the customer before they contact customer support. We've now got a question from Jenny that says, how do you approach upskilling voice-only staff to provide and promote non-voice? James, do you have an answer for this one?
It's certainly a good question. I mean, I don't think there's any easy answer. I think it's part of assessing your staff skills and within your contact center. I mean, clearly, if your goal is to promote non-voice channels, you need a strategy about how best to go about replying in that channel. And there's different schools of thought. Clearly there's some very basic level of typing skills required, but also just other things. The style you respond to your customer needs to reflect your brand. So it's things like, how formal are you going to be in that channel? Are you going to be quite chatty? You're going to allow spelling mistakes and so on. So it's really just about setting a strategy as you would for your voice channel. And doing the mapping of skills against each channel to make sure that staff can type at an appropriate level, but also that they're comfortable in it and they're coached as you would for a new agent coming on the voice channel. Because although we can all speak, you do need training in handling customer calls over the phone.
Thanks for that, James. The next tip we've got actually ties into that, and it's from Simon, which says, start small with a team that have the right skill sets and a control group. James, would you agree with that?
Yes, it's good. It's always good to start small, pilot things if it's new for your organisation, and get feedback from the customers to what works, what doesn't work, and if you have the ability to have a control group as well, even better, because then you can work out which is driving customer experience in a positive direction.
Brilliant, thank you. We've had another tip in from Mitesh that says personalisation is the key to improve the customer experience, which will eventually improve business by retaining existing customers. As a mobile service provider, we provide our existing customers with personalised tariff plans based on their past usage and spends, which gives our customer what they want. We've also had a question in from Mitesh that says, how do you calculate the resource required if we integrate voice, email and web chat? Paul, do you have an answer for that one?
Resource planning, resource management. I guess the first question is, are you actually running separate teams for voice, email and chat, or are you actually doing some sort of blended interactions? Some of that depends on the size and the scale of the operation. So if you're a mobile phone operator with hundreds of thousands of agents, then I would imagine you're more likely to have dedicated teams by sort of channel. If you're a 20 or 30 seat contact center, then you're far more likely to blend, just because you don't get the efficiencies to do it any other way. the planning assumptions are also subtly different between these different channels. So voice, as we all know, we have to remember Erlang theory and actually how we cope with the variations in calls throughout the day. With email, essentially it is essentially a linear queue, so you can let, if you wanted to, emails back up and then assign kind of a hit squad of resources on it. And with web chat, it's different again. We've already mentioned whether you just have a dedicated customer to agent relationship or whether you have agents that can deal with kind of multiple chats. So I think the resource in question starts with, are these individual teams or are they blended? And secondly, recognise the nature of the kind of workflow.
And it's almost impossible to do this on a Erlang spreadsheet. We've got one on Call Center Help. I've had a look at trying to adapt it. There are a number of people who do it with a number of fudge factors to assume a certain degree of inefficiency, but really you've got to get to some degree of simulation of the different scenarios, and that almost certainly involves some form of workforce management software, and they are getting much better at being able to take those different approaches together.
Yeah, and I think you have a webinar on this tomorrow, don't you, John?
We are looking at resource planning tomorrow, so tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Okay, well, we've had another tip in from Alex that says, sometimes you have to acknowledge it's maybe not something everyone can do. One approach we took, aside from coaching and training, was to provide some canned answers. This provided some structure or framework around replies, helped handling time, and we found if they were written right can actually look fairly personal. James, is this a practical approach to take to try and get all your workforce on board with these different channels?
It's one approach. I mean, clearly it's helpful to have a structure and a framework for certain, how best to handle a particular call. Obviously, as you go to, a highly personalised service, it's really, it's about letting the agent take a bit more control in a manual self-service approach. But certainly to get going, I think people do tend to construct some basic canned replies that, again, the more you adapt them. From a personal point of view, I don't like it if I'm on a web chat and I immediately, having spent several laborious minutes typing my response, my question, to get hit with a page of text, comes back straight away at me. It doesn't feel very personal. So it's being sensible about how best to do it. Really.
Yeah, and I guess canned answers are one to use with caution. The problem is once you start getting lots of canned answers, that I find the advisors tend to rely on the canned answers, which is sort of, it's about this, I'll just chuck that across, rather than actually looking at what the person's asking for.
Exactly.
It's sort of kind of almost like not listening entirely.
Exactly, yeah. That's what it feels like, if it's done badly, for sure, yeah.
Okay, we've had an opinion in from Jackie that says, personalisation is a must to ensure you enhance the customer journey. It must play an integral part of any multi-channel setup. We've had a tip in from Jackie as well, saying, one size does not fit all, but we have some macros with standard replies we use for consistency of our messages and responses. And from Jason, live chat can result in repeat contacts if not implemented correctly. Paul, is this a risk factor that quite a lot of companies worry about?
Yeah, I guess the scenario here is that if as a customer you're digital first, so you're starting out online, you're offered a chat option, but that chat doesn't then allow the customer to complete that transaction, and that might be nothing, the agent's done nothing wrong, but if the website doesn't support that process, then there has to be some other way in which the customer can achieve their sort of process outcome. So yeah, so live chat is not there to replace the fact that there could be significant deficiencies in a digital or sort of online strategy. It has to be there to help the customer to navigate from the beginning to the end within the capabilities that the actual website offers.
The one thing I see often that not implemented correctly on live chat is actually what we used to call in telephony a live call transfer, where you actually do a supervised handover. Live chat seems in a number of implementations I've been in, you need to speak to a different department. I'll just transfer you, and none of your live chat history seems to go across, or if it has gone across, it's not been read. So you end up then with almost starting again, explaining your problem out without any of that context going across with you.
Yeah, I think, Megan, I saw one of your earlier contributors say that they did outbound calls off the back of live chat, and again, I've certainly seen that used effectively. Where in the scenario here was the fact that the customer issue, the customer process, was going to take a long time to deal with over a chat channel. So therefore, the agent fairly quickly said, "Look, let me get one of the outbound team to call you." The success there, James, I think, has to come from being able to integrate that. So in other words, as Jonty's just said, that the customer information is put in front of the outbound agent, and the outbound agent makes that call back in a very timely way.
Yeah, so they have the context, and they can continue the conversation in a nice, seamless manner when the customer receives that outbound call. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we've had a question that feeds back in really to the quality there from Rilwan that says, how do you evaluate agents handling email interaction? Is there a staple response to this, Paul? Or does it vary from contact centre to contact centre?
I think it varies. I think you need to start with, in a similar way to a lot of phone transactions, have we achieved a first contact resolution? The challenge with email is that it is, as James was saying, it is an asynchronous communication channel. So providing that the information that the customer has provided enables the agent to actually resolve that inquiry and not then get follow-up and repeat contacts. That to me would be one of the kind of critical success factors. Otherwise, what happens is you end up having to bear the cost of multiple interactions around a single issue, and then you've lost any benefits of being able to kind of process that email in maybe a sort of quiet period when there aren't any other types of contact that's real-time contacts that need to be kind of dealt with.
Thanks for that. We've had another tip in from Craig that says, our assisted online team set up email and social templates and signatures that are easily tailored to the individual customer situation to help speed of answer resolution. This personalisation is monitored in their quality. We've also had an opinion in from Jenny. It says, in practice, we often seem to move in stages, integrating and trying to perfect one new channel before moving into another, e.g. bringing an email first and later social and then web. James, is this something that customers do tend to do?
Yeah, I do sympathise with Jenny. I mean, it always feels like you've only just tackled and done a fantastic piece of work in integrating one channel, and then the second or third bus comes along straight away. And I've got bad news for Jenny, because it's never going to stop. I mean, we're just doing some work. There's a technology called WebRTC popping along. That's going to make it much easier for web developers to embed telephony and video chats straight into web pages. And guess what? Now we're going to have to support that as well. So it is the future, I'm afraid.
And video's around the corner. Skype is going to be coming into contact centres, and let alone the Internet of Things feeding all such as stuff about the status of our cars, even the status of our toothbrushes and so on, is all going to be fed back into into contact centres. So I think there's more yet to come. So thank you very much indeed for that, Megan. Unfortunately, we're reaching the top of the hour now. So just like if you could type into the chat box. In one or two words, what did you like best about today's webinar? So if you could put that into the chat room. What did you like best about today's webinar? Slides are available on Call Center Helper. That's at callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. And in about an hour, a copy of the recording will be available on the very same link, which would be good. Tomorrow's webinar is Masterclass in Resource Planning, and Thursday we're going to be looking at 30 new contact center tips. So quite a lot of different topics here. And just as ever, I'd like to thank our two speakers. Paul, we'll thank you again for joining us.
You're very welcome, Jonty.
And James, thank you for attending this first webinar with us. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Thank you very much, John.
And thank you to all of the audience. And same time tomorrow, we're going to be looking at a masterclass in resource planning. Thank you all, and see you then. Bye-bye.